said, right, okay, let's start with the opening. So I just sat there ready to watch, and she said, oh, Ria, you're in this. And I said, oh no, I don't think I don't think I am. I'm not dance. I don't dance. I'm not dance. And I do dance, and I did dance more so than
I was going to say, you danced in Evita, didn't you?
And she said, oh yes, your character comes on as a normal cat at the beginning before she becomes Grizzabella. And I could feel my heart, because there were all these dancers limbering up, you know, like this. And I'm thinking, and I didn't even bring anything with me to dance in. And I remember thinking, I'm going to ring my agent. First break, I'm going to ring my agent. So I'm there now. We're all limbering up, and I'm really trying to, you know, convince everyone. They're all doing double pirouettes, and I'm like, oh, like Dawn French in the sketch with Darcy Bustle. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay, ring my agent, almost in tears. And she said, oh, okay, don't panic. Anyway, turns out every Grizzabella has done that. By the end of rehearsals, I absolutely loved it. And it was a fantastic way to keep in shape and keep fit, and also be part of the company, because Grizzabella is quite a lonely role. Apart from the opening, that is it. You're not with anyone, you know, as you know, they all...
Other people who have spoken to about it have said it's quite a stressful and lonely thing, because, you know, you do your first 10 minutes and then that's it. You have to stay in this frame of mind, and that you're isolated pretty much from the rest of
it is
the cast.
And also for me, mentally, because I did it for 2 years the first time.
And that's a long stretch in that role, isn't it?
It was. And I think, but you know, I was 21, I was in London, in the West End, I bought a place, I thought I was the kiddie, and it was just like, actually, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful time. The 80s going into the 90s was a great time to be.
The whole period of that time in the West End,
you had Phantom, Les Mis, Cats, Chess. It was all these great new musicals. It was a great atmosphere there, and you could park your car outside the stage door, which was very important. It was quite hard mentally, trying to, because everyone was waiting for the song Memory. Everyone waits for that song, and of course it's right at the end of the show, so you have to keep yourself focused, you know, and get ready for that song. And the thing is, they've all heard the song from a record, CD, whatever, sung perfectly, you know, a studio recording, and
no pressure then.
No pressure, exactly. So I found the pressure quite hard. At the end of 2 years, I remember going on once towards the end of my run when I knew I was leaving, and I started to sing, and I seriously forgot the melody. You know, when sometimes you just switch off. Awful thing to say, but you do, because you sing, you know. And then when you're back in the room, think, what's the matter?
Where am I? You go into that white room.
So, and I thought, it's time to leave. So, but it was a wonderful 2 years. And then I went back. Sorry, what's that? Then I went back to 10 years later, when sadly Stephanie Lawrence.
I was going to say you went back into it, didn't you? I was going to say, how did that come about? Yeah,
and sadly it was for you know, not a very nice reason, and it was so tragic. But
such loss for the world, because she was such a beautiful, talented,
stunning, talented,
performer.
Beautiful performer and person. Yeah, I agree. So, and the cast were all so sad and devastated.
That must have been really difficult going into that as a replacement in that kind of situation.
In that capacity, yes. But you know, I only had 5 days to rehearse, but I knew the show, and it's amazing how it all comes back to you.
I was going to say, once you've learned that Gilly Ling choreography, the fabulous choreography, it doesn't leave you, does it? It's sort of etched into the back of your skull for a lifetime.
And it's funny, whenever you do another show and you find people have been in Cats, straight away you go into
they're doing their whole
I don't know whether you saw, I think it was first lockdown, they did a big video of everyone dancing the ball
from all the way around the world, wasn't it? It was all multiple
around the world, anyone that had done it. And that was really emotional,
Oh,
because
my heart was going for it. Was just such. I think it was one of the first things that had been done by professional performers during that first lockdown. So to see, it was so emotional. Just
a couple of things really got me. That got me, and then when all the musicians came together for the big a medley of all the overtures.
Yes,
that was really moving.
Yeah,
and when the Broadway company with Bernadette Peters sang on the steps at what was the song from
Sunday with George?
Yes, Sunday. That was it. Sunday, da, 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 da. It was beautiful. The harmonies were gorgeous. That was lovely.
They've done quite a few things. I mean, I'm on the a lot of the Broadway companies, and I think there was a West Side Story medley of some sort that they did on the streets of New York, and then I think that there's been various other things. I think they've done something from The Wiz, Brand New Day. Like I said, the innovation and the creativity that's gone on in this last year, it's just been so inspiring, keeping people, aware that theatre isn't gone, it isn't dead, and we're still here. It's just been fantastic. But
and there's definitely a bit of more of a buzz now. Definitely a buzz, because it was funny last year. Originally I had a lodger, and she was in Mary Poppins, and originally we when she came home one night and she said, "Oh, I'm not back in tomorrow, I think we're going to be off for 2 weeks." And I went, "Oh, 2 weeks, oh God, how awful." That was
and a year later
literally dressing rooms just left as you would, to go home that night, and then having to go in and
clear out,
throw your old banana away.
I just can't imagine it. But
no.
Back to Cats, of course. We were, it's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It's just crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it?
But the fact that it's endured and there's companies up and running again, or soon to be up and running around the world, over in Korea, and I think I've got friends who produce the show in Korea, and I think they've just finished, I think, a few days ago. Right.
I know a few of them have come back to London, because of course Korea's kept going, the theatre scenes kept going.
They really managed things really well there, didn't they?
Absolutely. And I did the international tour as well, about 20 odd years ago, and it was mainly South African, Australian, and I was the guest Grizzabella for when they did it in Scandinavia. So I did Oslo, Sweden, and I can't remember the Helsinki, I think.
Right.
I was sort of did that 3-4 weeks there. And that was the last time I donned the catsuit. And funnily enough, I was trying to get back in the loft somewhere. I've still got my original Grizzabella wig.
Oh, fun. I was going to say, did you have any souvenirs, that we allowed to?
I've got the wig, and I've got the leg warmers, because the wigs are all made out of yak hair.
Right. I thought the Grizzabella wig was human hair, wasn't it? I was.
Well, it's a mix. It's a mix. The cat's wigs, the one I wore in the opening. I do that.
And we know what you mean. The fluffy.
Yeah, and they had wax. They had like a sticky wax on the end of the ears. That's all yak hair, and they used to get really itchy because it's quite coarse hair.
Yeah, I was going to say they look really fluffy, but when you touch them, it's kind of like touching a Brillo pad, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. They're really quite itchy. And then we've got and my Grizzabella one, like now, is very sort of there's not much hair left on it, but it's the original design, which I personally prefer to the new design.
I was going to say I ask you that question later on, but do you prefer your design?
I think she's become too glamorous in the newer production.
Yeah, the leather kind of corset kind of thing. I love
the ringlets. And the ringlet. For me, she was
the aging flopper kind of thing, wasn't it? It was quite sort of, the original wig was curly, but it was quite short, wasn't it? And she had that headband and a feather.
It was quite short, and it had little bits of broken down feather for her little bows, and it was much grayer, whiter, and I sort of liked that.
I was going to say, looking at the pictures of your early Grizzabella as well, your makeup design was slightly different to previous Grizzabellas and those since. It looked like it was kind of the whole company, the makeup and the costumes were going through quite a sort of an experimental period, and it was very, I think it was very a unique look. Was that something that you had an input in, or was that suggested?
No, I mean, I'm all for change. I really am. I think we do sort of, you know, grow as the production grows and change. Things change and everything, for sure. But some things I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like I loved the original duet as well. Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer did.
It was a lot more jazzier, wasn't it, and moody.
It's just I loved it. But when we got our makeup, we literally had a hand drawing, and the colors and everything marked out, and we were shown it, and then we had to copy it, and originally it took me about a good hour to do it, and then I got it down to 15 minutes.
That's really quick.
Just literally. But it was so funny. I was so used to drawing, the last thing was the nose to go on like that. And I was so used to doing it. Sometimes literally I'd be going out to go out for dinner, and I'd do my makeup, and I would literally go to put a cat. And I go, no. Can you imagine just not going out for dinner with just sitting there with a cat's nose.
The cat's nose on.
Yeah. It took a while to stop doing that and to stop doing that. And do you know why? Do you know what that is?
Was that for the microphone at all?
Yes. If you wanted to gossip about somebody, you put your finger over the microphone. So for about a few months afterwards, if you wanted to gossip, I was chatting to my friends and I'd gossip. I'd literally, the habit, do that. What's your forehead for? Oh gosh, I'm not wearing a mic. I don't have to worry now. So that was always, so if you do that, then you're gossiping about someone.
Yeah. Speaking to other Cats performers over the years, they were saying, you know, the whole thing of they were so used to, you know, holding the hands a certain way, and they'd be out and about doing things, and they'd find themselves kind of going like this, you know, trying to pick up, and people are like, what are you doing? You know, what are you, cat paws. Or
just turning around and checking your tail's not caught in the door and things like that. Because they used to just walk. And I always remember the green room was all glass in the New London Theatre, and there used to be Shepherd's, which was the supermarket opposite that's closed down now, and we always used to nip across there, you know, in our makeup. And I remember on matinee days, which was Tuesday in Cats then, standing waiting to do the matinee, you know, looking out the window, and there'd be people just, you know, in suits and normal dress just walking past, and sometimes they'd look up and literally do that, and I'd be thinking, what they're doing that for? And then remembering, it's
I'm dressed
2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm dressed that's why. That's normal life, and this is what I do, you know. But it was it was happy times, and I had such a wonderful cast. I was really blessed. Yeah.
So going back to your beginnings of Cats, did you you mentioned when you had your audition, you literally just have to sing? Well, just have to sing. You literally sang Memory, and nobody said, oh, we'll do a little bit of dancing with you. You just Nothing. Had you not seen the show beforehand? Were you not aware that?
I hadn't seen the show even after signing my contract. I'd never seen the show. And then when I was in rehearsals, they said, well, would you like to see the show? I said, yes, I suppose I should. And and so I remember going to a matinee, and it was nothing as I expected it to be. And I'm absolutely honest, there were times and I didn't have a clue what was going on.
Yeah.
The Chinese dance section, I was like, not a clue.
Yeah. It's one of those shows that it either bewilders or intrigues you enough to want to go back and go, what does that mean?
I know, and I'm sorry if some of you love that section, but I was bored with that section. I was just like, oh, come on, okay, we've got the message, we've got the, but you know, for me, I was a little bit bored, and I thought, but And
I think from some of the dancers that they felt the same way about
yes,
it.
they did.
Well. It was like the Siamese.
The Siamese.
You get that sigh and they go, you know, oh, do you love the show? Yes, we love it, but
everyone used to go
yeah,
the Siamese. It's just long, you know. But it you know, listen, it's fabulous. And when the orchestra and the dancers, that ball, when it all used to just come to, sometimes it would just fly. It was wonderful every night. I watched it every show.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I don't know whether there was a different drummer in and he was just going, sometimes it would just fly and the energy was electric.
Yeah. I think being in that theatre as well, it was such a unique and genius space to do it. I try and explain it to people who've only seen the show in a traditional prosarch theatre. And I said it was nothing like that in London. You were literally walking into an environment where
absolutely
you wondered what on earth was what's this here, and plus if you were lucky.
Yeah, it was so funny because a lot of the usherettes used to say, you know, a lot of people were complaining because they booked front row seats and there was a dustbin right in front of them.
Yeah.
So how am I going to see the stage? Not knowing that it was all going to
be the first 4 rows moved. And this is the thing I completely, because on the if you remember in all the newspapers when they used to have the theatre section and the show billings, it used to say in the cat section, latecomers will not be admitted when the auditorium is in motion. I was thinking, I used to think, what on earth is happening in this show that the auditorium is moving partway into the show, until I actually, you know, went to the theatre and was sat in one of those front row seats. And again, I thought, this is really odd. I'm sure I booked to be sort of front stalls there, but I'm starting off here. And then, of course, you know, when the overture kicks in and that perfect moment when you hear that, you know, that theme music. Oh.
I remember, you know, we all had to do what we call cat's eyes, which is masks that we put on, and we have a battery pack and we press the button every time the eyes to flash. And I remember one particular time in the matinee, because there used to be lots of children on the matinee, and all the stalls, the seats that turn, were full of kids, school kids. And I always remember our white cat, Amanda Courtney Davis, the most beautiful dancer. She ran out to do her flashing eyes and went up to this kid and flashed, and he punched her in the face. Oh, came off with blood pouring from on our white unitard, like, oh my, because he was so, that was his first action, punch. And of all the cats to knock out, it was white cat. So we were all a bit tentative from then on, you know, be careful, because you really do scare them. They used to be screaming sometimes. Which I sort of quite loved.
I'm actually really interested to see the new Andrew Lloyd Webber's new Cinderella, because he's actually put the spinning auditorium back in to London now for the first time. So that'll be really interesting.
That'll be interesting. I don't know whether the story is true. Back of my head, I vaguely remember the story of, I think the theatre was used as TV studios before, and that's where they used to film This Is Your Life, wasn't it?
That's how
Trevor Nunn and Andrew Lloyd Webber were there, and they were both thinking this would be amazing. They spent the evening downstairs underneath, you know, talking about what they could do in this space, because they'd been looking for a place for ages.
I think it had been, I think it's up on YouTube still, actually. It was Andrew's first This Is Your Life, and literally, sort of as he you know, they sprung it on him, they took him there, and literally as the evening was going on, all he could think of apparently was this would make a brilliant. And as soon as the stopped filming, he found a phone and rang Trevor and who was working just down the road, and said, you know, get yourself up here, and then you know, ask questions of the building stuff. You know, does the revolve still work? I seem to remember, you know, and they were underneath for years. They were having a really good route around and what have you, and I think it was, you know, it was a stroke of genius. And then obviously with John Napier's fabulous design, it just, you know, it was so iconic. It being there,
it's amazing. He mortgaged his house as well to get the production on, because he couldn't raise the money, so Andrew mortgaged his house to or remortgaged his house to
Yeah,
get the
nobody. Well, I seem to remember reading somewhere that all everybody who would normally invest in their shows just didn't want anything to do with it, and they were literally. I think I remember. Bonnie and Paul Nicholas saying, he was turning to the cast and saying, if anybody's got any money, sort of squirreled away, if you can invest it. So they were thinking they're in the cast.
Wouldn't you want to be the one that did now?
Yeah, well, this is, they're always saying, well, if he's struggling to raise money for this show and we're in it, and he's asking us, what on earth have we got ourselves into, and of course none of them did, and then lo and behold, it became a hit, and everybody was kicking themselves, so it was definitely. I mean, nobody could have really said that it was going to be the success that it was, but boy, what was it ever? I mean, I remember, I was only, I'm showing my age now. I think I was about 7 at the time, 6 or 7 when it came. I remember it.
I haven't seen it. It's in the kitchen somewhere.
Oh,
utility room.
I think we've got someone who needs to be on mute.
Utility room.
Hey, Jon, would this be a good time to take a few questions from our chat audience?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Here we go. So let me grab those and just start at the top. Hang on 1 second. Thanks for letting me do this. So the very first question that I got was from Joanne, and she would like to know, what was the very first show that you watched that made you want to get into the theater, Ria?
Oh, great question. The very first show. Well, I grew up, my mum was an opera singer, and she did a lot of Gilbert and Sullivan shows when I was young. And so I used to go and watch her and just loved being on stage, really, and loved watching her. So I suppose operetta was the first things I saw as a child, and pantomime, which is often a children's first taste of theatre, live theatre is pantomime. The first musical I think I saw in London was, I'm going to drop a name now, but my friend Catherine Zeta-Jones, hang on, I'll just pick it up. Was in Annie. She was also in Bugsy Malone. And I always remember us first going up to London, the pair of us, to audition for Bugsy Malone. And at the time, it was snowing. And we had to queue around the block of Earl's Court in the freezing cold snow. We queued for hours for this open call for Bugsy Malone. And I remember I got in and I was too tall, and I'm only 5 foot, just under 5'4", depending on how I backcomb my hair on the day. But I was too tall, and Catherine, who's now 5'8", 5'9", got through, and she got in the show. But I remember we all came up to London, a coach trip from Swansea, our hometown, to see Catherine in Annie, and the wonderful Sheila Hancock played Miss Hannigan, who I heard. That performance has stayed with me. She was fabulous. And I think I remember being envious of Catherine doing this, in London. How fabulous would that be? But still never thought it could be a career, because all my life up until, it was a hobby. I went to the local dancing school and I sang in the school and church choir. I did pantomimes as a child. I got my equity card at 9, my child equity card. So I'd always performed, but it was for fun. Both my parents were involved in the business, and I think they just thought, if she's enjoying it, so let her continue, but never thought it could be a career. And it'll be 40 years next year, so there you go.
That's an interesting reaction, because so many parents are like, no, don't go into the business. So it's great that they didn't do that.
Do you know what I think it was, Jon? I think it was because my mum won a scholarship when she was 18 to train at the Royal College of Music in London for 3 years, opera and piano. Now, coming from Swansea and very working class background, that was a huge opportunity. Everything was paid for. She won the scholarship, so the course was paid for and the accommodation. But she enjoyed it, but she said for her, she would have loved to have gone into musical theatre because it was more fun. Back then, it was the opera world and the classical world was very different. And she was terribly homesick, and she used to saw Julie Andrews at Drury Lane, and she saw all the musicals and that's what she really wanted to do. And of course, when she finished her course, she gave it all up, went back to Swansea and married my father and had my brother and I, and never ever took it up again. And she sang for the Queen at the Royal Albert Hall where she was there. She cut a record. She was a beautiful mezzo soprano, but I think her heart was never really in it because she was a home girl, and I don't think again she could think of it as a career. But she always says to me that I'm doing what she would have loved to do. So I think she's enjoying seeing me do it. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes she wishes that had been her path.
So almost a little bit of a Mama Rose moment there. Almost.
When I did Gypsy last year and I was researching it all and we were talking about mum and daughter relationships, I couldn't believe sometimes. Don't get me wrong, my mum's no Mama Rose. She is lovely and very, very much not pushy at all.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that sometimes she wished she had the opportunities I had in a much sort of lighter musical theatre. And she was stunning and the most beautiful voice. And I think some of the roles she could have been cast in. But she's enjoyed my dad was a singer as well. My dad was around the same time as Tom Jones doing all the clubs in Wales. And they were called concert parties, where a group of them, variety singers and all that, would go around to the clubs. And my dad did that for 30 odd years. So I always grew up with music in the house. And my mum loved all the old Rodgers and Hammerstein movies and all so I grew up watching all the musicals and all the black and white movies. So I had a great sort of,
Was that a source of sort of inspiration to you wanting to become a performer then, because you saw your parents performing and was that something you thought, yeah, I can do that? Was that thing of
it was definitely something I thought, oh, I can do this, but again, never thought of it as a career. And I remember I was doing a summer season in a seaside town, Porthcawl, near Swansea, and I got paid £40 a week for doing one show. And I thought, I'm getting paid for something I love to do.
And you think it's a fortune, don't you? When you first starting out, you think, oh, this is marvelous. You think, oh,
I've still got I've kept all my old contracts, and I look back and it just they're great. My old pay slips, and I've got them. I've kept them from the beginning, one from every job. And I look back and to get paid for doing something that was a hobby and that I love to do, I thought, well, this can't be bad. I'll keep being a Welsh teacher, which I thought I wanted to do, or what I should do, more like it. And back then in Wales, we didn't have musical theatre schools. We didn't have Italia Conti's Arts Educational. We didn't have any. Didn't even have the Welsh College then. Well, the Welsh College was there, but they didn't do a musical theatre course. So you would have to go to London to study. And I just couldn't, parents couldn't afford it. And I didn't want to leave home so young. And well, saying that, I left home at 15, 16 to start work. That's when I started Joseph.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it was a different era, a different time back then. I think, when I speak to younger dancers and stuff, I said I was so lucky that I literally caught the tail end of that era of where you were able to go out and do cabaret in clubs and and get a summer season.
You sort of did that for your equity card back then. And I loved the equity card. I wish we still had them.
I think it's one of the greatest tragedies for our business in this country that we don't that equity doesn't have that same power of representing us, and
you had to graft to get your card, and people were there for the right reason.
It meant something,
not just
didn't
for the
it?
celebrity status.
Having that card really meant something, didn't you? You felt that you'd really put the hours in, and you'd earned it, and you were able to. It wasn't some people kind of who who weren't savvy, to the business thought, oh, you get your equity card, you get work like that. No, you still have to audition and stuff, but it meant that you were able to work and that you had protections.
Back then, it also meant that you could have a private audition with an equity card, whereas if you didn't have an equity card, you'd have to wait for the open calls. But when you had an equity card, it means that you had more chance to be seen. And I know, so I sort of quite like the fact that it sorted out the people that were.
And like you said, we were able to work from being 15, 16 years old, whereas now they have to be 18. So, you know, we wouldn't,
Do
you know,
they?
like, yeah, and most auditions now, they have to be 18. They don't usually cast, unless it's for a specific age role, then
Yeah.
I think the working laws have changed within. I mean, there always were the kids, sort of, you know, under 16. They had to have a special license, but I think that now applies for between 16 and 18 as well. So, you know, I think back and I just think, well, you know, we're so lucky that that we were, you know, that we were around in that time and were able to work from a young age. And, you know, when I say to people, oh yeah, when Bonnie Langford was in Cats, she was only 16, 17, you know, and they go, what? You know, you know, people like, you know, who have been in the business, you know, from a young age, you know, now wouldn't have that same opportunity. And I just think, you know, it really was a mixed blessing for everybody who, like, you know, like yourself, who was able to go into the business at a young age. And like, so you started off in Joseph then. Was that your first big musical professional job that you did then, Ria?
I did Godspell first for a few weeks at the Kenneth More Theatre in Ilford and the Lyceum in Crewe, but then I suppose the long contract came with Joseph, when I was 16, playing the narrator, and we did 12 shows a week, the Bill Kenwright one. And we were still using lead radio mics then. I remember all the brothers had coloured lead mics to match their dungarees, and the choreography was all around the mics, the lead mic. But,
right.
Yeah, I did that for a year, and that sort of
was it Henry Metcalf who?
Yes, Henry Metcalf.
Bless him. We lost Henry last year, didn't we?
I know, yeah. And
he was a Joseph legend.
Peter Lawrence.
Yeah.
Peter Lawrence was Jacob, the widow, and it was a brilliant way to sort of learn the business. They really took me under their wing, and
Lindsay Haley's going back to play the.
Yes, I'm thrilled.
30 years.
Yeah, I was thrilled to see that. Yes,
I was going to say, because you went back into the really useful version of the show, which was, you know, kind of repackaged and you know, all turned into a big.
Did it with the mega mix and Philip Schofield, Aled Jones, and an Australian soap star called David Dixon. They were my three Josephs. But Philip Schofield, oh my God, that was hard work. We just couldn't stop laughing. It was dangerous. It got to a point where I banned him from my dressing room before the show, because we have such the same sense of humor, and we talk about something in the dressing room, really laugh. Of course, we go on stage, look at each other, and we just remember what we were talking. It was awful. And he could get away with it because he was Philip Schofield and Joseph, and I was the narrator trying to hold things together. And it got to a point where I'd be sweating, thinking, my opening night on my bow, I held his hand and he squeezed something really, well, I don't know what it was. And I took my bow, and as I bent down, I looked at my hand, there's this brown, horrible, and I bowed, I said, what's that? And then he said, it's Molly's poo, which was his little baby daughter. And he'd squished a big Rolo into my hand, and hot sticky Rolo, and all covered in and it was like, welcome to the company. And then he said, I hear you don't laugh easily, you don't corpse easily. And I said, depends. And it was his mission. So a couple of times I got really close to like complete, if I lose it to a point where it's only happened a couple of times where I can't breathe, and I've literally had to go off stage because I couldn't continue. And it's awful. It's a terrible, terrible thing. It's like, you know, when you're in church and you mustn't laugh and you just want to laugh. And it's awful. When people say you can't, you just want to, and I really lost it. Once in Les Mis, and then another time. Luckily, it was panto, but it was during a really, how can a scene be serious in panto? But it was when the prince left me. And I was just in hysterics. So it was awful. It's an awful feeling. But Philip used to make it his mission to make me laugh. But when it got to a point where it was actually I was dreading it. It was awful. And everyone else used to wait for all the company, and even the musical director was in on it, because I was being so good. And I got to a point, because we had to do a duet where we'd look into each other's eyes at the end of the show. A crash of drums. And I turned to him, I'm laughing now, a flash of light. And we had to look into my golden coat. And we got it together that I'd look just past him over his shoulder. So we didn't look in. And then we were doing so well. And then all of a sudden, the musical director came out with 2 coconut shells and started to dun, 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 and that was all it took. And that was it. We were off again. So it was just awful. But anyway. So yeah, never work with children, animals, or Philip Schofield.
That's the quote of the day. That's the quote of the day.
Yes.
Speaking of churches, I had a question backing up from, oh gosh, where did it go? From Rob, our own Rob Brown, to ask what it was like to perform in the church at ALW's home in Sidmonton, and what other exciting venues stand out to you.
Oh, that was amazing. And it was a little bit like an Annie moment, when you just literally turn up to the gates and you go through the gates, and there is this house. And it was just, yeah, I was 23, 24. And it was just the most thrilling 2-3 weeks we were there, drove down. Funny, Michael Ball was my Joe Gillis in the workshop.
I was going to say, was this for Sunset Boulevard workshop,
Sunset,
was it?
Yeah. And Andrew has had the little chapel, the church in the grounds, converted into a little theatre, and it's beautiful. And it worked so well for Sunset, because there's a spiral staircase coming down, and that was my entrance as Norma. And it was just, it's beautiful. It's just big enough. And I think there were about 100 people, if not more, there. And that's where he workshops all his shows for the first time. He invites everyone down for the weekend. They discuss the show. And so they were all there, all the, producers, friends, agents, journalists, they were all there. But it was a thrill. But the fun actually was the rehearsals, because it was like being in, Norma's mansion, the pool, the swimming pool. I've got shots of me and Michael Ball around the pool and everything. And it was just lovely. It was really special time.
Sounds amazing.
It must have been really thrilling for you to be invited. Did Andrew himself invite you to participate in the workshop?
Yeah, well, the funny thing was, I'd just finished in Cats, not long finished in Cats, and I had auditioned for the Narrator in Joseph, the new production. It was between Lindsay Haitley and myself, funnily enough, and Lindsay got the role. And I think as a sort of compensation, he said, would you like to do Norma? Would you like to sing Norma for my new musical Sunset? So I think it was a little bit of, which was, at the time I was thrilled, but looking back, it was like, I'm so glad it worked that way. It worked out that way.
I mean,
how it's all come. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just all written there and you just go with it. So yeah, it was thrilling. But I knew at that age there was no way I would ever get to play it.
I was just going to say, did you actually think, well, I'm never going to end up doing this, but it's a thrill anyway, being able to sing this material first, and maybe one day, and then lo and behold.
I know, but you see, even when I was older, the right age to play her, I still thought I'd never get to play her, because they always got the big stars in, you know. And so when the chance came to stand by for Glenn, I'd never had been a standby before, because the difference is, if you understudy, you're actually in the show and you understudy a role, which I had done before. I understudied Elaine Page and in Chess, my first West End show. And so I knew what understudy entailed, but a standby, you're not in the show, you literally are standing by in the wings in case that person goes off. So it was really odd, the first day rehearsals, when the director had given his speech, he then said, right, let's get the first scene up. And I was like, where do I go? Where do I sit? How do I behave? What do I, so it was strange for me. And lots of my friends were saying, why are you doing this? This is stepping backwards for you, covering somebody. I said, no. This is a great opportunity to study an A-list Hollywood star, how they work, how they, and also to get to know the role again and to get to sing the role again. Not thinking for a minute I'd actually get on. I thought it was a great opportunity to get my foot back in, you know, with Andrew and that team, and it was, well, I think it's one of my happiest jobs ever. And that was even before I went on. That was the icing on the cake. And then, of course, getting the tour afterwards on the back of that was worth all the hard work and the wait from way back. Many centuries ago.
Well, I think that's the
no, I got musical Tourette's. So yeah, no, it was a special time and surreal. Sometimes I look back and I'll never forget the morning after the first performance. It was one of those, did that really happen? Because I literally was thrown on. I'd had 2 3-hour calls on stage. Act 2 first, bizarrely, and Act 1 the following week, and that was it. Never had a run through with the orchestra, never had done it with costumes, and there I was, literally thrown on, which I think sometimes is better, because if you know you're going on, you have all that work, the run up to it, the work. When you're just thrown on, you've got no time. And I knew the songs, I knew the lyrics.
Yeah.
As being a standby, that was my job. By opening night, to know if I had to go on, I could, regardless of whether I'd had any rehearsal. You do your own rehearsal, you do your own study, and which I had done. So I knew from opening night, if push came to shove, I could go on. And so yeah.
I have to ask you, Ria, if you don't mind me asking you, coming to that night and that moment, you stood in the wings, and that announcement was made, and the audience reaction was very, very mixed, to say the least. What I will say is that day, the internet was completely afire, and all the various groups were like, you know, it's the topic of discussion, and of how could people react that way to a performer. And my take on it was, it wasn't a reaction to you personally, but it was just the announcement itself, and you know, of course, people who, you know, who aren't performers and who don't know the business of, you know, were absolutely you know, sort of in uproar about it. And I said, I'm telling you now, that lady is a pro. She would have stood in the wings, and yes, she might have heard those boos, but knowing you know, what, you know, how performers are, I'm sure she was thinking, right, you lot, I'm going to show you now, you know, I'm going to get out there and do my job. And literally, you know, from the footage that I've seen, you know, you totally won the audience over, I think. So I
mean, it was a story of the underdog coming through, and the audience being part of that journey, and that the whole evening, starting with the boos, you know. And I knew, I'm doing it long enough, and I knew that would happen if there ever came a time when I'd be on. And I understood it, you know, people were disappointed. All right, I wouldn't sit in the audience and boo or want my money back. That's not theatre etiquette in my book, but a lot of people had probably only seen Glenn Close in films. And so you don't necessarily know how to behave in a theatre. So I knew that there would be people shouting, you know. So I turned the tanno down. When they made the announcement, I turned the tanno down, and I just wanted to focus on playing the role of Norma Desmond. And in a way, I've always said it was in my favor, because they didn't know me from a bar of soap, a lot of those people. So when they saw me on stage, they saw me as Norma Desmond, not Glenn Close playing Norma Desmond. Because I've gone to productions before and seen famous people, and all I can think of is Judi Dench. Oh my God, it's Judi Dench. And not necessarily the character as much, because you almost can't get past that it's that person. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just think it's hard. It's harder when you're that famous. But for me, they didn't have a clue I was. So they were seeing Norma Desmond, a person called Norma Desmond that they'd never seen before. So I thought that was to my advantage. So I just remember thinking to myself, just play the role, play it scene by scene. And yeah, there was a bit of me going, right, okay, I'll show you lot now. Okay. You know, of course there is. That's the fighter in you. That's the performer in you. And I sadly lost my dear friend Victoria Wood the day before she passed away. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what, I bet you that's Vic. She got up there and went, right, what can I do now? Let's get that girl on as Norma Desmond for a start. Let's sort that. So to me, it was like, thank you, Vic. Thank you. And I know she would have been in that front row watching me. So for me, I did it for her. And I focused on that I was going out there doing it for Vic.
Wonderful.
So that's all my focus.
Yeah.
And so I forgot all about that. And literally, as you know, within the first few minutes of Norma being on stage, she's got that big opening song, With One Look. And I just went for it. And at the end, they just went crazy. And it really took, not, because you've got to, inside, I was thinking, oh my God, they like me. Of course you do. As a performer, if you're being honest, that's what you're thinking. They like me. Oh my God, I'm doing okay. Right, keep focused, don't lose it, because it was very emotional. The moment was very emotional, because literally they were booing 1 minute, and then the next minute they just went mental. So my next line was, now go. And so they just went on and on and on, and they wouldn't let me get my line. And then I literally went, now go. And it was as if I was saying to all the people that have booed, take that, you know, and everyone just, they're literally after that line, now go, like, now take that, now. They all just roared with laughter. And there was a little bit of smirk as I said it. And then from then on, that was it. And then the end, they just went crazy. And so I thought that would be it, you know, one night and Glenn would be back, but I was on the next night and then 2 shows after that. So, and then by which point word of mouth got around, the West End was all buzzing, everyone was emailing. I felt so much love from the theatre community in the West End, people who I admire messaging me. It was just wonderful. And you know, one of my friends said, you know, they call it took you what, 36 years to be an overnight success. So, and it's true, you know, that's but sometimes it's worth hanging in there and it's worth the graft. But also what I had to remember was that I was on because somebody was ill. And I think you always have to remember that. So as much as it was wonderful to get that attention, you still have to remember that there's somebody poorly, actually, who can't perform. So you, as much as, you know, I had quite a lot of people asking me to do, and I turned down quite a lot of stuff because I didn't want people to think I was, you know, reveling in the glory, because there's a fine line. You can take it so far, but then you have to remember there's somebody, actually, I've been in that position when I haven't been able to perform because I'm ill, and it's an awful feeling. I hate letting people down. I hate not being able to perform, but sometimes you physically can't. And it's hard knowing that somebody's going on playing your role. As much as you want the show to go on, it's hard. So I remember, you have to remember that. So as much as it was wonderful for me, you just had to watch that too. But yeah, it was. I had a wonderful call from Andrew. He was in New York and mad that he couldn't be there. So I've got a lovely message that I've still got on my phone from him, how he can't believe that I've come all the way around, how my very first Norma, he said, is now singing the role at the Coliseum. And so that was lovely. And I've still got the letter he sent me after the workshop on the old typewriter face. And it says, thank you for bringing Norma Desmond to life. And some other lovely lines, and then love, Andrew. So I've got that. So yeah, you know, I've always said a performer, you can spend your whole life waiting for that one role that will show you to your best ability, and you might never find that role, or one might come along, like Idina Menzel. Maybe if Wicked hadn't come along, we might not know her now, because that role came along at the right time that suited her voice. And for me, I think Norma suits my voice, my age. I was the right age. It was the right time in my life. And you know, or it might not have come along and I'd be, you know, I'll have missed that opportunity. So I think it's a lot of it is luck, timing, and the right show coming along at the right time.
You've been tremendously lucky, haven't you, over the years in that? I mean, I was amazed. I thought I'd better do a bit of homework and did a bit of scurrying around on the internet before, because I knew that obviously that you'd done some shows, but I was absolutely gobsmacked. I was like, are there any roles left that she hasn't done yet? That, you know, that it just kind of, you know, I didn't realize you'd done Guys and Dolls and there was a couple of
I couldn't sleep last night, and I was trying to count all the musicals I'd done, and I got to 36.
Wow.
So, yeah, 36.
I mean, obviously we've mentioned about Cats being 40, celebrating its 40th anniversary this week, but it's also the 35th anniversary of Chess as well, which you also
that was my first West End show. I joined it 10 months into it being open, and so I was there with the original cast and ended up playing Svetlana and then Florence, and then I left from that to Cats. But I'll tell you a quick story about Cats, going back to Cats, because this is one of my favorite stories from when I was there originally. So I never like to know when people are in the audience. Friends know, not close friends, yes, I because I often have to sort their tickets out, but if anyone else in the business or in the industry or anyone, I never like to know, because I always try too hard and it all goes wrong. Reminds me of when I was a child, and my mum would say to me, "Stop showing off, you're spoiling it for everyone," and it was like, oh. So it reminds me of that, you know, just I try to do the best performance I can, you know, and I never like to know. Anyway, this particular day I was at home and it was the afternoon, my phone rang, and it was the stage door girl from the New London Theatre. And she said, "Ria, you never guess who's in tonight." And I said, "Don't want to know. I don't want to know." "Oh no, you'd want to know." I said, please don't tell me I want to know. "It's Shirley Bassey." Well,
oh gosh.
Now I'd grown up listening to Shirley Bassey. I used to tell my school friends I was the love child of Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones. I used to believe I was. Honestly, I used to tell them, I had this whole story in my head that, you know, my mum's a singer, my dad's a singer, maybe they knew them, they had an affair, and I was the love child, but they didn't want me to be spoilt or in the limelight, so they asked if my parents would adopt me. I had it all worked out. Anyway, so I idolized her.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious.
It's so true. And then my school friends used to come in asking for autographs for their mums, and I'd be like, "How am I going to get around this one for Tom Jones?" Anyway. And funny enough, I've worked with Shirley and Tom since, and they both know the story, which they found hysterical. Anyway, I think Shirley would have quite liked a little fling with Mr. Jones. Anyway, so she said, "Shirley Bassey." I said, no, that's it. Well, from 3 o'clock till I got into the theatre, I think I spent more time on the toilet than I did. All I could think about was, oh my God, Shirley Bassey's in. Oh my God, Shirley Bassey's in. Okay, so I'm in the dressing room, show starts, I go on, do the first half of the show. I mean, literally heart in my mouth. I could see her in the stalls. 4th row back on the left-hand side as you look out. And I can't believe it. Anyway, in the interval, over the tannoy, can Ria please go to the green room, they called it the VIP room, which was the green room as well. "Would you, Ria, please go to the VIP room?" So of course all the cast are going, "Shirley Bassey wants to meet you, Shirley." And I'm going, "No, I'm going." So anyway, I go over to the VIP room. I walk in through the door, and I'm dressed as Grizzabella, got the fur coat on, everything. I walk on, and there she is, the other, and she went, "Johnny," she said, "Come here." So I walk, and I said, "Oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you." "Oh, you're flying the flag for Wales," she said. "You're flying it first. Let me try the coat on. So I'm absolutely, so I take my coat off, and there's Shirley Bassey now, puts in the Grizzabella coat on, and she's going, "We keep a welcome in the hillside. We keep a welcome." And I'm standing there going, oh my God. "We keep a welcome in the hill." And I said, "It's such a pleasure." And she said, and I said, "I was so nervous." "What are you nervous for?" What are you nervous for? It's only me. What are you nervous for? I said, well, you know, singing in front of you, you know, get on that stage and do it just for me. Get on that stage and sing it just for me. All right, okay, miss, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I felt so much better, you know, it just completely broke there. So I went, well, I have never gone for that note, touch me, ever before. I literally sang it with every fiber of my being. Touch me, it's so easy. I think I held that note on forever. And I finished it. I finished it, and she stood up and gave me a standing ovation and just was literally blowing me kisses. Amazing. And cheering and standing. And I was just beside myself. I'll never, ever forget it. It was honestly the highlight of those 2 years. She was just wonderful. And then since then, the next time I met her, I was doing a Royal Variety show, and she was the star of the show. And so there was Montserrat Caballé was doing the show, Shirley Bassey, and wonderful Tony Bennett. And Shirley always has it in her contract that her dressing room mustn't be painted 3 weeks to her arrival to the theatre. They painted a dressing room the morning of the show. So she came into the theatre and literally threatened to walk. So Tony Bennett said she can have my room. So she moved upstairs and Tony Bennett went to her room. Well, of course, I'm there in my room and I've got Montserrat Caballé warming up next to me that side. And I've got Shirley Bassey next to me that side. And I'm too scared to warm up in front of them. And I remember walking up in my dressing room and Ronnie Corbett was there chatting to her. And I thought, I wonder if I should I said, no, I'm going to say hello. So I knocked on the door and I went, hi, I don't know whether you remember, Ria. She said, come in. And it was lovely. And we had a lovely chat and it was just wonderful. And then we worked together in the opening of the Welsh Assembly. And then I met her again at a Welsh Women of the Year Awards. And that's when I told her the story of the love child, which she absolutely loved. There's a photograph on my Facebook page of me sitting on her lap, because I asked if I could have a photograph. And she said, well, if you sit on my love child, you better sit on my lap. So there's a picture of me sitting on her lap. My goodness, so yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely fabulous.
My dream is to sing the duet Tell Him with her. I would love to sing a duet with her. That would be a dream. So yeah, you never know, but yeah. She's and another quick Shirley story, and this is really quick. When Marks and Spencer's did the Christmas advert and they used Shirley singing, I'm coming up, so you better get this party started. I did the demos of 3 songs for Marks and Spencer's in the style of Shirley, so she could decide which one she preferred. And apparently my friend who did all the music for it, apparently when she heard it, she went, who's that? I don't swallow my vowels. And I was like, actually, I'm coming up, so you better the party started. And I know she's Ria. I know Ria, but I don't swallow my vowels. So yeah.
So, fantastic. Oh gosh, that must have been amazing time. Moving on to I'm just trying to think, where do we go next?
Any more questions?
I was going to say,
we have more questions from the audience. Now, I have to make sure it's okay to go for a few more minutes because we're actually at about time. But if you don't mind, Ria, we can ask another couple of questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one, let's see if I can find it. 1 second, I have to scroll back. Somebody was asking about if you get to take Dottie on tour with you.
Dottie, for those of you who don't know, that's my dog. Yeah, Dottie Desmond. And she was supposed to be in Gypsy with me. And to cut a long story short, it was too much to get her up from London to get and it was such a big role, Mama Rose. I literally didn't want to worry about Dottie running off into the audience because she's a pet. She's not a stage, well, She actually is quite stagey, but she's got a turban. She's actually got her own little turban because the wardrobe girls on Sunset made her a little turban with holes for her ears. So I do take her on tour with me as much as I can, but many theatres don't accept pets. But the ones that do, I took her in, and it was always used to make me laugh when I'd come back from the interval and she'd be sitting on my chair looking in the mirror. And she's been on stage in shows with me, my own one-woman show in Swansea a couple of times with me, and she's had standing ovations, so she won't be with me again.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then we had another question, and I see who it's from. It was from Sophie. Hi, Sophie. This is regarding Acorn Antiques, the musical. What was it like working with Victoria Wood on such an iconic role as Mrs. O?
Oh, it was nerve-wracking. Funny thing is, I never went up for Mrs. Overall. I went up for the glamorous sister, and then was recalled for Mrs. Overall. And I thought I looked quite good in the audition. I thought I looked quite glamorous. I was recalled for Mrs. So I was a bit sort of surprised, but thrilled. And then when I got the role, I was terrified because I thought, there's no bigger shoes than Julie Walters to step into, but somebody had to do it. And I just thought, stay true to the character that she created, but put my own spin on it. And so Vic told me that I reminded her a lot of Julie, certainly in my audition, and which was a huge compliment for me. And I grew up watching Victoria Wood and Julie Walters. I know every line of the sketches, but she was scary. She was scary to work for. She was, she would, and in the right way. She wrote that show, and if you put a but instead of an and, or an it instead of an, she would come down on you with a ton of bricks, and she'd say, look, I spent sleepless nights over that but, so don't change it and put a, and she was right. She was absolutely right. And I love comedy, and up until then I'd never really done comedy, so I think a lot of people were surprised. People that knew me knew I loved comedy and I'd fool around, but as far as show business went, I'd never done a comic role. I think the nearest I got was Reno Sweeney, but even then, there's nothing as like Mrs. Overall, So, but I love comedy. It's my first choice. I would do comedy for the rest of my life if I could. So, and Vic was wonderful. And I remember her telling me once, she said, listen, she said, just remember with comedy, let the audience decide if you're funny. If you decide you're funny, it's not funny. If you just, she's right, play it for real and let the audience decide it's funny. And it's the same thing with Norma, with the campness of Norma. I've always said, if you play Norma camp, it's too much. It becomes a caricature. If you play her for real, then let the audience decide if she's camp or if she's, but I think if you set out to play her as a camp over the top, she is over the top, but it's that fine line. So yeah, I did. She's just, I remember I spent an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours with her once, driving home from Brighton in the car, and we didn't stop talking because we had a very similar journey into the business through the clubs and variety and talent shows and stuff like that. We had a very similar way into the business, so we had loads to talk about, and we had lots in common that way. And yeah, she was just, I miss her, and she's sadly missed, but again, so lucky to have had that opportunity. Yeah,
and she must have been looking down and so proud. I think maybe she did have a hand in that night at the Coliseum.
Completely. She was like, right, let's get this sorted. So, yeah,
just a fantastic story. And we have now from Kimmy, and she would like to know, it's kind of a two-part question. During lockdown, what have you done to find your peace? And then if the restrictions were just lifted and you could do anything, what would you do and who would you take with you?
Okay, nice questions. Yeah. I found my peace back home in Swansea because for the first lockdown, I went home for Mother's Day for the long weekend and stayed 11 weeks. So I had Dottie, and I reconnected with my mum, which was lovely because due to the business, you know, I only have flying visits here and there in Christmas time. So I reconnected with my mum, which was lovely. And I also reconnected with my hometown and the beach and the beauty of the beach and the peace of the beach and the healing qualities of the sea and walks and just the simple things that we so take for granted. I found my peace there. And as far as what I would do if lockdowns were lifted, the biggest party for all my friends that have helped me through the last year, be it on Zoom, be it over the phone, but just have a big party where everyone can just hug, laugh, drink, and eat as much as they can. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. We'll all be there. Just send us the info.
Yes. My party's notorious. If I'm not serving breakfast the next day, it's not been a good one. So.
That's a great goal. It's party goals. Okay, and then let's see. What was next? We had. Oh, did you get a chance to see the recent Kilworth House theater production of Cats? And if so, what did you think of it?
Of what? Sorry.
Of Cats, the Kilworth House production of Cats.
No, I didn't. Did any of you see it?
I did not.
I had my friend was the MD on it, and I had a couple of friends who were in it as well, and it was definitely a very different production from, because
it was new choreography. I mean, I was surprised that they were allowed to do that. I think it's great, but I'd really love to have seen it. I've been interested to see how they
set it as if it was in the Blitz.
It was in an underground train station, wasn't it?
It was
performance.
Yeah, it had like a sort of 30s, 40s feel. So all the characters were in sort of like some of the female characters kind of looked like the Andrews sisters, and they kind of had, you know, like that style of costume on, and you know, they had the cat element, but they also had the human element as well. And there was like I think it's the first professional production in this country that has ever been allowed to be a non-replica production, where they haven't used the John Napier design. So it was definitely unique, and I think it was outdoors as well, wasn't it? So
yes, it is outdoors, Kilworth House. Yeah.
But,
no, I didn't, but I'd like to see it. I'm sure there's somewhere on the internet. There's a video.
There'll be a dodgy little recording, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We need to find that, John. Let's get on that. And then just to close it out, there's a few more, but I wanted to make sure we got in this question, which is from Dominique. Hi, Dominique. I don't know if you're still with us. I hope you are. There you are. I see you.
Hello. Bonjour.
Bonjour, Dominique. Ça va?
Ça va bien?
Ça va bien. She would like to know, we'd all like to know, is there some character that's still on that bucket list of characters left to play? Who is it? What is it?
Oh, gosh. Well, one that was very much on my list, I ticked off last year, and that was Mama Rose.
You've done quite a lot of the big sort of, you know, big female roles, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's
funny, people say Dolly, but I've not got an urge to play Dolly.
I was going to say, was Dolly or Mame perhaps up there, maybe?
Again, you know, I'd love to do Follies. I'd love to play.
I was going to say, I could see you doing maybe Sally or
one of the roles in Follies. I'd like to do, and also another role is lovely is Desiree in A Little Night Music. That's a nice.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I do love Jerry Herman, so Mame is fabulous. I would have loved to have played opposite Tracy Bennett in that.
That was a fantastic production.
I'd love to have played opposite her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because there's not really many. The role in Drowsy Chaperone. Belinda, you'll know this, and Laura. What's the role called? Sorry, you're on mute.
What's she called? The role Bess Lavelle played. She's the drowsy chaperone, isn't she?
Of course, she's the drowsy chaperone. Yeah, I'd love to play that role. Because we talked about it the other day. I saw it with Elaine Page, and I saw Beth's performance online. I didn't see it live. I know you did, didn't you, Belinda and Laura, you saw it on Broadway. I saw it because you can see it on YouTube. So I watched it on that. She was amazing. I mean, incredible. So, I mean, stunning. So I'd love to play that role if they ever did it again here. But, you know, it's a hard musical to sell because a lot of musicals these days are based on films. It's almost like people need to know what they're about before they see them.
Yeah.
Years ago, you know, a show had to be successful on Broadway first, and then they made a film of it. It's the other way around now. So a lot of shows that aren't based on films struggle sometimes. And I think Drowsy Chaperone was one of them. I think it's a wonderful show, but it's not based on it. A lot of people, they only can afford to see one show if they're visiting London, 2 at a push, and they'll see Phantom and Les Mis before a show they've not heard of. So I think it's
I think some of that over here is due to we don't seem to have we don't seem to have as many well-known up-and-coming composers of musicals. You know, Andrew obviously has led the way there in the last 30-40 years, and
Styles and Drew.
Styles and Drew, yeah, of course, are probably the other people who.
But you're right. I think young composers that have made it here and on Broadway, like Andrew, I think it's really hard to get any sort of funding to start. I don't know.
It's like you said earlier, it is a business, and to do a sort of jukebox show or a stage adaptation of a film is more of a guarantee of you know, bums on seats, isn't it? It's kind of, if it's something popular, then, you know, like Ghost and Back to the Future, you know, there are known sort of entities.
That's why I think it's important that we have shows like Come From Away that aren't based on a film, but obviously based on true story, but it's a new, fresh, and I loved it when I saw it. I thought it was a great show. I remember really enjoying Once. That was new and fresh, and again wasn't based on a film, but there was a trend at one point that nearly every musical in the West End was based on a film, and so it would be nice to see more. It would be nice to see more musicals written with an older female male in mind, but you know, it's tough. I know they found it hard to cast Norma because it's quite a big sing, and the older you get, obviously your voice changes, and it's 8 shows a week is a tough sing. So there's a mixture of that. But,
when they did Sunset over here, they actually had 2 Normas. They double cast our probably 2 biggest stars. We had Simona Kleinsma was one Norma, and Pia Daoist was the other. And when they recorded this show, they're both on the recording.
Yeah, because I did it in Amsterdam. I did.
Oh, right. You came over and did the tour, right?
Did it? We were there for 2 weeks. Yeah.
And, before I got here.
And I
wasn't here yet.
I did a few TV shows over there as well, and then some of the PR people were telling me about Pia. Is it Pia?
Yeah, Pia and Simona.
Right. Yeah, had done it, but was it in English or was it in Dutch?
But it was in Dutch. Right.
Yeah,
they do really good translations here. Actually, they don't just do a literal translation. They really go in and do a whole new libretto, and so they get some great rhymes, and they really rethink the shows. So and they also try to put in some jokes that Dutch people are going to laugh at. Like the one thing I remember from the recording is that the coat, the fancy coat, is not a vicuna coat in the Dutch one. It's a llama coat. Well, and there's all these jokes about the llama.
To be honest, I think 9 people out of 10 in Britain would know more what a llama coat was than a vicuna.
For sure.
I don't know so I think a llama's much funnier.
Yeah, they always put it at the end of the line. It's all be blah 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 llama. It's like, what's the joke?
That's
alrighty.
Talking of languages, I have sung Memory in Welsh as well. So,
wow,
it's beautiful in Welsh. It was quite hard to learn, but and I've actually sang With One Look in Welsh as well. So, yeah.
Oh wow! Is there anywhere that we can hear it, or is it not recorded?
I don't think that it was on TV. It was filmed for TV, and in Llandudno, theatre in Llandudno, I sang I Know Him So Well, Memory, and With One Look, and Amazing Grace, with the London Community Gospel Choir, which was lovely.
Fun.
So it's somewhere. I'd love to get a copy of that show, because it was a really lovely show, filmed from the theatre. So yeah. But With One Look was Pwy dwi Norma dana pwy seren fawr fydd yn seren fwy, and Memories hwyr nos nid oes sŵn ar yr heol a'i llwyr heb atgofion ac gwenu hun. That's the Welsh. It's pretty.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And also, the lovely thing is, when it comes to the big touch me, sometimes I think in Welsh the vowels are so different, but luckily it's tared tared. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for letting us hear a little glimpse of that.
Thank you.
I can't think of anything more exciting than that. Have a little private concert, so thank you.
The audience get covered in a bit of spit though when you sing in Welsh. So
same with Dutch, you know.
You have to put your umbrella up.
Exactly, splash zone, all that.
Well, before we wrap things up, I have to ask you about your time on Evita, because I know we have some Evita fans here.
What?
you were, I think you go on, it's on record that you were the youngest person to play Ava, weren't you, at that time?
I think there is someone in America that's challenged it. How dare they?
It was Donna Marie. She was also
but I was 18.
After.
I was 18 when I got the role, when I auditioned for Hal Prince. I was 18. And then when I actually got on, so I was 18 during rehearsals, and then I had my birthday during the run in rehearsals. So I was 19 when I played her, yeah. Yeah,
wow.
What a role.
I was going to say that was one of the first big shows I saw in Manchester. And it was there was such a...
that's where I did it, Manchester.
Yeah.
That was where, with Catherine Evans. I alternated with Catherine Evans. Yeah.
Oh,
that was
so great.
I loved Manchester. I'm doing a show in Manchester on July the 9th, by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a open air, Home.
I know Home, yeah.
Well, they're producing it. It's called Home Ground, and it's a big open air sort of venue. And they've got got Alice in Wonderland, Midsummer Night's Dream, and then certain nights they've got one-nighters. And so I'm doing an hour-long cabaret on June the 9th in the evening, open air in Manchester.
Fantastic.
Wow.
I have to tell you this quick story, Ria, because I have a sort of kind of connection to you, because I worked at the Palace Theatre when I was a young slip of a lad, when you were in Les Mis, and obviously I worked in the box office. Obviously we came to see the show quite a bit, and we came to some of your cast parties and what have you. And anyway,
what did I do?
No, you were absolutely lovely. I tell you what, the last night in Cockatoos was definitely.
I loved that place. That was
wonderful.
Yeah, that was the best place. That was.
But anyway, I have to tell you this story, because earlier on in that year, just before I started working there, I'd done a production of West Side Story over in Preston, and because they knew I had this job there, they said, can you sort some tickets? I was like, leave it with me, So we got them all in there. All the cast came, and we had a very, very talented young man who was only, I think he just turned 19 at the time, and we came to the stage door afterwards, and we congratulated yourself and Jeff and all the rest of the cast members, and I introduced this young man to Jeff, and he turned around to him and said, one day I'm going to play that role. I want to be Jean Valjean. And lo and behold, 25 years later, he did. And that man was Alfie Boe.
No.
Yes. So you met a young Alfie Boe all those years ago before he became well known. And nobody knew then that you know, what was going to become of him. We all knew he had this fantastic voice, but yeah, so it was one of those moments.
I told us, Belinda and Laura, this story the other day, but I worked with him when he was in the D'Oyly Carte theatre group.
Oh, right, yes, of
course. He was in the chorus.
Yeah.
And I was doing a show in Swansea celebrating the 100 years of the theatre. And I found the program the other day and saw his name in it. So I had worked with him. And probably I can't remember whether that was before.
Yeah.
So I don't know, or after, I can't remember, but yeah, how
he's such a lovely, unassuming guy.
He still remembers the time. I wonder if he still remembers coming to the stage.
Alfie definitely. Well, it was the if you remember, there was the theatre bar next door, so
yeah.
we all kind of went there for, you know, a little drink afterwards. And I told Jeff the same story, and he couldn't believe it when Jeff came to do a Q&A last year or the year before, and I said, oh, you know, I don't know whether if you remember or not, but actually, you know, I told him the exact same story, and you know that there was this young man who was a singer who turned around to him and said, you know, I want to play your role, kind of thing. And he went, oh really? And it was Alfie Boe, and he was gobsmacked, absolutely gobsmacked. You know,
so you worked in the box office at the Palace.
I did, yes, yeah.
I heard a lovely story when I was in the show that a woman rang up once and I said, well, who is this Les Miserables? Is he any good?
We used to get all kinds of, honestly, some of the stories I could tell you, that the phone calls that we'd get.
I don't know whether you remember the opening night that never happened. The opening night that never
barricade,
happened.
Yeah, they froze, didn't they?
And Les Dawson was in the audience, and it was just, I love this story. So basically, we'd done Act 1, got to the interval, 15 minutes went, 20 minutes went, 25 minutes, half an hour, and 40 minutes, and suddenly we were all called on stage. And Cameron was there, everyone was there from Cameron's office. And he said, look, the barricade's broken. And it was full of all the Coronation Street stars, Emmerdale, you name it, they were all there.
The
all
curse of the Manchester theatre strikes again.
Exactly. And Cameron said, look, if we go out now and just improvise with chairs, the barricade, the press will have a field day because it's been advertised as this world class musical, blah, blah, blah. So he said, what we'll do, we'll go out, stand in a row, the curtain will go up, and we'll all sing, do you hear the people sing? And so we all lined up. Cameron was there with us in the middle. The curtain slowly went up and Cameron stepped forward and said, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, we're so sorry, but due to technical difficulty, we are unable to perform. And out of the blue, Les Dawson shouts, can you tell us how it ends? Literally, you can imagine his voice. Yeah. Can you tell us how it ends? And I think Cameron went, well, we all die. And it was just broke the ice because they've been working for ages. And then we all just went and had a party. So we never opened. We never did Act 2. It was really weird.
Yeah. So, it's one of those strange things that seems to only happen in Manchester on opening nights. It's happened on quite a few shows. But I mean, that year when that you spent in Manchester, I mean, we just loved you. You were our cast.
It went on and on. It went over a year, and we kept selling tickets. So, which is rare now. Can you imagine selling out at the Palace Theatre for nearly a year and a half? Now?
Yeah, I mean that stage is probably, I think it still is one of the biggest in Europe, isn't it? It's an absolute barn. Yeah. And it's such a wonderful theatre. And
those were the days.
Yeah.
Run into the phone box in the interval to get there first before anyone else.
Oh.
No mobile phones then. Ringing your digs, checking if they've got a phone.
Oh gosh.
I wouldn't change the world. Anyway,
it's such memorable and happy times. I mean, it was just so exciting for me, being just a small part of the theatre back then. Just getting to see real actors that go about the business, and it was just a really magical time. And as I said, I think the city really took all of you to their hearts, and you were our cast as far as we were concerned. And like you say, you were playing to sell out audiences, and we wouldn't let you go. So
No, great times, great times.
Well, we're coming up to, we've actually done an hour and a half, over an hour and a half now. I think we've not only taught the hind legs off the donkey, but the ears and the tail as well. So, do we have any more questions? Does anybody want to say anything, or Ria, do you have anything more that you'd like to share?
Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you're all safe and well wherever you are, and have all had your first jab at least.
Yep.
I'm waiting for mine, second one. So yeah, you haven't had your first yet, Sophie. You're too young then. I got no sympathy. No, hopefully it won't be too long. Won't be too long. Gosh,
it's super light at the end.
Yeah.
I have to say, Ria, a heartfelt thanks from myself and the rest of the admin team, and
Absolutely.
everybody here who's joined us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this with us. It's been an absolute joy. It really, really has, and hopefully, maybe we can do it again sometime in the future.
Happy to do so. Thanks to everyone tuning in, and I know a lot of you support me in my shows and everything, so thank you for that, and thank you for hanging in there this past year, and I look forward to seeing you all in the audience as much as you.
One more question: after you've done your concert in Manchester, are there any new roles coming up, or
I'm doing 2 at the Crazy Cocks in Piccadilly in June and July, but I think they're sold out. But I think they will be releasing more tickets for that because of the restrictions. They can only sell so many. And then on the 21st of June, hopefully, when all restrictions will be lifted, they'll be able to release more tickets. And then I am doing something coming up in the next few weeks, but I can't say yet because it's not had the press release, but it's exciting. And so that's happening, and then I've had a few availability checks for nice shows over Christmas. So watch this space, and I'll let us, as soon as I can, I'll let everyone know. But,
fingers crossed.
Thank you. Because without people like you, I wouldn't have a job. So thanks for supporting.
Bless you. It really is a privilege to be able to have done this. And
it's nice having a chat, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's just lovely.
Sitting in front of Netflix, it's just nice having a chat. Lovely.
As I said, big thank you again, Ria, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And we hope to see you all again soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care and thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Ria. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.